Welcome back to Kiranmai Spiritual School of Thought. Patanjali Yoga Sutras is the topic of discussion for today. Arise, awake, and meditate. Burn your sense gratificatory illusions, live your today, and create a legacy for tomorrow and the world. This is the concept behind Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Let me bow down with folded hands for sage Patanjali. He is the Ishvara incarnation for introducing Yoga Sutras 3000 years back. A small prayer from Patanjali. योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचं मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तमं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलि प्राञ्जलितोऽस्मि. Coming down to Yoga Sutras. What is a Yoga Sutra? It's a thread or a formula that has been designed to condense maximum knowledge into minimum words. The objective of Yoga Sutras is to create a balance, bring out a stable mind, which is possible through Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means to still the patterns of consciousness. This can be compared to an example. For example, I threw a stone in a pond of water. So for me, in order to see through the stone, I need to wait for the ripples or the dirt to settle down to find out where the stone has fallen inside the pond. In the similar manner, our mind is full of patterns, modifications, and thoughts. For us to see what is our true selves, we have to remove all the patterns or the modifications that exist in our mind. So this is the base of the entire Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which we are going to understand. Coming down to our mind. Our mind is a powerful asset or a tool which, when tamed well, can create wonders in the world. But it always tends to remain entangled in the materialistic world or the phenomenal world, and it keeps looking outwards. That's the reason we suffer. Suffering is also possible because of old age, disease, and death. And our mind tends to oscillate between different emotions like pleasure versus pain. So these are all the impurities which exist in our mind. These are all called as Siddha Vrittis. And this can be removed only through yoga or meditation practice. And also Patanjali Yoga Sutras gives an answer to an inquiring mind. The questions like, where do we come from? What are we and where are we going? What is the purpose of life? The answers to all these questions can be obtained by understanding the Patanjali Yoga Sutras in deep. And the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali has 196 aphorisms and 4 chapters. The chapters include Samadhi Padaha, Sadhana Padaha, Vibhuthi Padaha, and Kaivalya Padaha. Samadhi Padaha, it's an integration or it's the basic goal of yoga. Coming out of Sadhana Padaha, it's a path to realization or it's the practice of yoga. Vibhuti Padaha includes a discipline. Kaivalya Padaha, it's the ultimate liberation or the freedom. Coming down to the definition of yoga, it's a spiritual realization. It's the union of oneself with the divine power which exists within us. And also, the second definition of yoga can be mastering our mind or conquering our mind or senses. This has to be the basic attitude of our mind. I know it's not that easy as I tell you that, you be a big master of your mind or conquer your senses. It's an arduous training. It's very easy to do what is comfortable, what our brain tends to do. But with utmost dedication, discipline, tapas, svadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanena, we could achieve this objective. And also, yoga is experimental or experiential. It varies from person to person. It doesn't mean the same meditation concept or the yoga is applicable or universal, or it cannot be generalized for everybody. There is a saying, seeing is believing, but believing is not seeing. Once you have seen what went through your entire paradigm of life, there is no concept of believing also. Coming down to the second, Bhagavad Gita and yoga, how are they interrelated? Bhagavad Gita is an inspirational poem narrated by Lord Krishna to Arjuna stating, do your duty by controlling your mind. And the control of mind is attainable only by doing yoga. Yoga is of 3 types, Karma Yogam, Jnana Yogam, and Bhakti Yogam. Karma Yogam tells us that do your duty, Manasa Vacha Karmana, with Trikarana Sutti, without having any desire or expectation. That is nothing but Yogastha Karmasa Kaushalam. Once you do your duty without any expectation, it doesn't matter about the result. We are all the time equanimous, which is nothing but Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Coming down to Gnana Yoga, it's the knowledge of our own selves or the spiritual realization. There is a saying from Bhagavad Gita, Uttaret Atmanam. We only have the power to elevate ourselves. And also, Aham Brahmasmi tells that there is a Brahman within all of us that has to be realized only through meditation. How is it possible? Shrutavya, Mantavya, Nidithyasitavya. Shrutavya means Shravana. Learn, listen to more and more information or gain more knowledge. And Mantavya, which means Mananam, memorize or contemplate. And then comes the Nididhyasitavya, which is the Samadhi or the absorption stage, which is nothing but integration or the union with the divinity, with our true selves. This is all about Jnana Yoga. Coming down to Bhakti Yoga, which means do your duty and surrender it to the divinity. So hope I'm clear about all the yogas. Coming down to the Sankhya philosophy or the yoga which was given by sage Kapila Muni. It talks about Sankhya theory and also the philosophy of numbers. What is Sankhya? Sankhya is the accurate knowledge or the philosophy of numbers. We might have heard in our school days evolution of theory, the number of atoms and molecules constitute an object creation and also its destruction. So this is all about evolution of theory, which we have to understand in deep. So the basic information that I can tell you in this presentation is Sankhya, which means the accurate knowledge or the philosophy of numbers. This is a theory. Basically, Sankhya is a theory, and yoga is the practice. Whatever knowledge that we have to put it into practice. That is possible only through yoga. And Sankhya constitutes two basic elements of every living being. What are they? Purusha and the Prakriti. Purusha is the conscious entity, which is nothing but the pure awareness. And Prakriti is the primordial nature, which constitutes the three modes of material nature. They are Sattvam, Rajas, and Tamas. Everybody is different and every personality is different. It varies because of the different permutations and combinations of different gunas like sattvam, rajas, tamas present in each and every person. They do not know that this particular attribute of their personality is getting highlighted at a particular stage. For example, let's talk about sattvam, which means goodness or the kindness. A person with that kind of attribute is all the time happy and you always aspire to gain more and more knowledge. For example, a scientist or a research. Coming down to Rajas, a person full of Rajas attribute is very passionate. He always expects something out of it. He needs more and more. Like whatever he has is not satisfied. And he always focuses on the fruits of his actions. That's the reason greed develops within a particular person. Coming out with Tamas, he's an ignorant person. He's less knowledgeable. He doesn't understand the difference between good and bad. He always indulges in illusions and he is always ignorant. He keeps sleeping and he thinks everything comes to you. We just have to stay like that. So, Prakriti, it's an equilibrium of these three modes of material nature. We all need to transcend above the three modes of material nature. Coming out of the yoga, as per Patanjali, yoga, the definition of yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, to still the patterns of our consciousness. This has to be the ultimate desire of human life. The less the desires that you have, the less the stress that you have, and the less suffering we tend to have. Our thoughts should reflect our words, and our words should reflect our actions. We should never be a pretender. This is what which creates our personality. This is the personal reality. Let's see what Sankhya philosophy is all about. The Purusha, it's the Ishvara or the creator or the pure awareness or the consciousness. Prakriti is the primordial nature which consists of 24 elements of nature. This is the unconsciousness like earth, water, fire, air and ether and their unmanifested form. Intelligence, ego, mind, the 10 senses and also the 5 sense objects like sound, sight, taste, touch and smell. Coming to Samadhi Padaha. This is the first chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which talks about integration, moksham, and kaivalyam. What is yoga? Yoga is mastering of our own chitta vrittis. And how do we attain this? By stilling the patterns of our consciousness, which means chitta vritti nirodha, and also by understanding the discrimination between the seer versus phenomenal world. Purusha versus Prakriti, which is called as discriminative awareness or Viveka Khyati. This objective is attainable
only once we understand our own true selves, that is nothing but called as seer, by not attaching our true selves to the colors of the world or the phenomenal world, to the patterns of our own consciousness, which means tada drashta swarupe avasthanam. The seer has to abide on to its own nature, and also vritti sarupya itaratra, or else the awareness takes itself to be the patterns of consciousness. This discrimination is very important under this chapter of Samadhi Padaha. And let's learn to master our own chitta vrittis, or the modifications of our mind. So what are the modifications of our mind? They are categorized, or the chitta vrittis, they are categorized into 5 types: pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra and smriti. And what is pramana? Pramana is the direct perception, the knowledge that we obtain through direct inference by reading scriptures, agamas, or the textbooks. Coming to viparyaya, this is the wrong knowledge or the misperception. A negative person tends to think negative in all aspects. For example, a person with jaundice tends to look at the world with yellow eyes only. Coming to vikalpa, which is nothing but infatuations, illusion. Certain people tend to daydream irrespective of their actions that they do in the world. Coming to nidra, this is the state of a sleep. And smriti, all the thoughts that you generate in your mind, they're getting stored in a memory, which is called as smriti. And also our thoughts are categorized into 2 forms, which is called as, one is the manifested form and the other one is unmanifested form. Unmanifested form is a state where our thoughts, it's a deep sleep state wherein our thoughts are frozen or condensed in the form of a seed during the sleep, and they are stored in our memory. As and when we are awake, they transform or open up and bring thoughts into action, which is called as a manifested form. So pramana, viparya, vikalpa belongs to manifested form because the thoughts are already put into action, whereas the nidra and smriti, they belongs to unmanifested form, which is called as the avyakta form, wherein our thoughts are condensed in the form of a seed. And also our ultimate desire in life has to be chitta vritti nirodha, which is an aklishta desire which arises because of knowledge or vidya. We tend to think we are the Atman, we are not the body, mind and soul. And also yoga helps to thin out all the kleshas. All the kleshas, what do you mean by kleshas? Like they are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinavesha, kleshaha. Avidya is nothing but the wrong knowledge, asmita is the ego factor, and raga is the attraction towards an object of enjoyment, and dvesha is the complete aversion, abhinavesha, which means clinging to a different likes or dislikes. So these are all the kleshas. For example, a person is very furious or angry. Why do you think he's very angry? Because he doesn't know to control his thoughts or emotions. He just thinks, this is the only emotion which I need to exhibit so as to keep a control of the entire world. So, but that doesn't yield any good results for that particular person, because he doesn't know. This is a kind of klesha which has been there in our mind since the generation, since the previous incarnation, and they do not know how to thin down these kleshas. These kleshas, any attachment like anger, any emotional addiction, or any clinging to an object, all these things are different klesha. So we tend to get attached to it instead of coming out of it. So once we understand what is our thinking pattern, then we will be able to reduce or thin down the kleshas through meditation or through yoga. Coming to the next slide. Mastering of our own mind. So what is this chitta vritti nirodha? We've already learned a lot about chitta vritti nirodha. It brings in concentration in our mind. By understanding our chitta vrittis, by stilling the patterns or by stilling the chitta vrittis, we will be able to improve our focus and concentration. That is when every human being has a creativity, we can bring it out and create wonders in the world. So this is possible only through abhyasa vairagyam tan nirodha, which means, what is abhyasam? It is nothing but the meditation practice. What meditation practice? And vairagyam is nothing but the non-attachment. So let's talk about meditation practice. What is the object of meditation practice? It brings in one-pointedness, or it will help our mind to rest on one particular thing or one object or one breath or one mantram, which is called as alambana. Alambana is a support which is given to the mind, wherein our mind is silenced and it starts focusing only on one particular aspect, which is called as one pointedness. And coming down to the next attribute, non-attachment, vairagya. In general, we tend to say attachment brings in more control, but that's not correct. Non-attachment brings in more control, because let me take an example. A mother or a parent, a mother or a kid relationship, or a husband or a wife relationship. If a mother is too attached to the kid, what happens? It's going to mislead, because the mother thinks the kid is the only source of happiness. So if the kid is happy, the mother is going to be. If the kid is sad, the mother is going to be unhappy. So this kind of attachment, it misleads and it creates an imbalance. But what Yoga Sutras talks about, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he all the time keeps telling a balance is most important in our life. A balanced state of mind is attainable only if we are non-attached, or if we bring in the concept of vairagyam into our own mind. And we should always think, as a yoga practitioner, happiness doesn't lie outside, it lies inside us, and it should not be dependent on the external factors, because they are all temporary. Nothing stays with us, but our own Anandamaya Kosha is there, wherein we have to learn to be blissful irrespective of the circumstances. In the relationship, we should never be too attached. So non-attachment brings in more control and it reduces suffering. And coming to, I think we all have watched the movie Dear Zindagi, wherein a Shah Rukh Khan, there is a dialogue between Shah Rukh Khan and Alia Bhatt. Shah Rukh tells, a genius is a person who knows when to say no for all the illusions, as an example of Chitta Vritti Nirodha. I think once you understand the concept of Chitta Vritti Nirodha, you will be able to relate this concept to the movie Dear Zindagi, wherein every person should know when to say no to all the illusions that crop up in your mind. Thus, that has to be the basic primary motive of every human being. And coming down to the meditation. So how do we go about doing meditation, and how do we get rid of all the bondages, the mental addictions, attachments, once we learn about different chakras, nadis, vayus and koshas, and also once we learn to elevate our prana to the highest wheels of luminosity, then we would be able to arise at a knowledge which is called as Dharma Mega, which is called as a cloud of virtue. After entering into Samadhi, we would be able to attain this kind of particular knowledge. So let's learn about Ashta Chakras and Nadis and koshas. Coming down to our human body, our entire body has 72,000 nadis, which are called as the energy pathways, and also 145 chakras, which are called as energy centers. So out of this 145 chakras, only 7 chakras are important to us, which we need to understand. The first chakra is Mooladhara chakra, which lies at the base of the spine, and its primary objective is food and sleep. They are more dominant, prevalent over there. Coming down to the Swadhisthana chakra, which is called as the sacral bone chakra, which lies at the sacral bone, and which is the important aspect of the sexuality, well-being and pleasure. And coming down to the third chakra, which is called as the Manipura chakra, which is called as the navel chakra, which lies at the navel of our body, which focuses on confidence and power. And next comes the Anahata chakra, which resides at the heart of the human body, and which is responsible for bringing in the creativity and inclusive of love and joy. And the next chakra, the sixth chakra, is called as the Yagna chakra, which is nothing but the third eye chakra, which lies between the two eyebrows, which is responsible for bringing in wisdom, intuition, intelligence and balance. And the last chakra, which lies at the top of our head, is called as the Sahasrara chakra, and which is the primary objective of it is to attain more and more knowledge, understand the aspects of spirituality and enlightenment. Coming down to Panchakoshas and Panchavayus of human body. The Panchakoshas are Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha lies at the gross level or the food or the body level. Pranamaya Kosha lies at the prana or the breath level. Manomaya Kosha lies at the mind level. Vijnanamaya Kosha lies at the consciousness level. And Anandamaya Kosha lies at the subtle level. We need to realize there is a gross body as well as a subtle body. Gross body, which is the external body, and the subtle body, which lies inside, where there is Anandamaya, which there is bliss or happiness inside. That is what we have to realize under this aspects of koshas. Coming to Panchavayus, like Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana, and Vyana. So these are the 5 vayus. And also there are 3 important nadis like Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna nadi, wherein we all need to learn to activate the Kundalini energy or the serpent energy which lies dormant inside a human body, which is not visible, and elevate the prana through the Kundalini, through the Ida and Pingala, till the great heights of wheels of luminosity. And also Rittambara Tatra Prajna. This is a kind of knowledge or the wisdom that is obtained by learning to still the patterns of consciousness. And also there are certain obstacles also which come under the way of Chitta Vritti Nirodha. They are called as Chitta Vikshepas. The obstacles, they come in our way because we start tending to interiorization, which means we start looking inwards. So these obstacles come in our way. The obstacles like apathy, doubt, carelessness, mental or physical laziness, hedonism, delusion, lack of progress, inconstancy. These are all the barriers to stillness. Because of all these barriers, we tend to fall in depression or anxiety disorders, or we tend to suffer more. So how do we avoid these obstacles? There is a formula for that also, which aims at the mental well-being. This is behavioral therapy, which is a remedy for all the obstacles, which is called as Chitta Prasadanam. So this is obtainable through Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. Maitri, trying to be friendly towards a happy person, a person in a state of sukha, and trying to be compassionate, Karuna, trying to be compassionate towards a person who is always in the kind of a depressive mode, and Mudita, which means trying to appreciate the punya, the good deeds done by the other person, and also Upeksha, trying to be patient towards a person who is doing apunya or the wrong deed. You try to warn him that this is wrong. If it doesn't listen, just pray God and try to be patient enough. So this is how the journey that went on in the concept of Samadhi Padaha, where we try to completely merge with our own Swarupa, which is called as Ishvara, or the seer, and that is what is Kaivalyam. And also one important aspect that we need to remember under this chapter is a thought versus seed versus tree versus rebirth, which means once we die, all our thoughts are stored in the form of samskaras or impressions in the subconscious mind, and these are responsible to create a new incarnation, which is nothing but called as a rebirth. And also from our previous incarnations, also a lot of memories or a lot of thought and lot of seeds we might have created. That's the reason we have this rebirth. So our ultimate objective of understanding this Patanjali Yoga Sutras, or the first chapter, which is the goal of yoga, which is nothing but Samadhi Padaha, is to focus on Nirbija Samadhi, which means a state of Samadhi without any seeds. That is the reason we will be able to understand integration and not going for a rebirth, which is nothing but the moksha, which is the ultimate objective of human life. Coming down to Sadhana Padaha. This is the second chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which focuses on the practice of yoga in terms of self-realization. This is a path to self-realization. So what Patanjali says, what is in our hands? Our future vision as well as our present karma is in our hands. The past has already gone. We can't change it. And the past actions, past thoughts, past deeds, let's break them and let's create a new self through practicing this Ashtanga Yoga, which means the 8 limbs of yoga, which helps us to understand better about ourselves, which aims at self-knowledge or self. Ashtanga Yoga talks about the 8 limbs of yoga. The 8 limbs of yoga are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. The first 5 limbs of yoga are part of the chapter Sadhana Padaha, and the last 3 limbs of yoga are part of the last chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which is nothing but Vibhuthi Padaha. So Yama talks about external discipline. The factors associated to the external discipline are Ahimsa, Asatya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. Ahimsa talks about non-violence, Satya being truthful, Asteyam, non-stealing, Brahmacharya, celibacy, Aparigraha, non-possessiveness. Coming to Niyama, it's the internal discipline aspect, which includes these factors. Saucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana. Saucha means cleanliness, internal versus external. Santosha, trying to be content with what you have. Tapas, it's the self-discipline. Svadhyaya is the self-study. Ishvara, Pranidhanena, feeling the presence of the divine power within ourselves. And coming to the asanas, this is the physical form of yoga, which includes various forms of postures, and the more stable you sit, the more stable our mind is going to be. And also pranayama, this is a method of regulating the breath. There are different kinds of pranayamas which helps us to improve our concentration power also. Pratyahara, this is the concept of internalizing. In terms of looking outwards, we normally all the 5 physical senses tend to look outwards, but this is a process of internalizing, which means it's a pratyahara, it's a reversal process, reversal mechanism within which we tend to look at the third eye. We focus our 2 eyes, keeping half closed, focusing on the tip of the nose, trying to think there is a divine power at the third eye, and we tend to meditate. This is the pratyahara. This is one of the important limbs of yoga during the Ashtanga yoga. And coming down to the next, Vibhuthi Padaha is the 3rd chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which talks about discipline or the extraordinary powers or the Vibhutis. So perfect discipline is attained only by practicing Samyama. Samyama is a combination of the last 3 limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. Dharana focuses on concentration on one particular single object, or focusing the mind on one pointedness, which is nothing but complete pure focus. And next comes the dhyana. This is the meditative state wherein there is an uninterrupted flow of the mind towards its chosen object, just nothing but defocus. And samadhi, it's the final stage wherein it's an absolute union. We tend to become transparent, we become integrated, or we become oneness with the divine power within all of us. That is the state of samadhi. So don't think the samadhi is the final state of Ashtanga Yoga and done with the meditation process and all. Samadhi is not the end, it is the beginning of the immense happiness, creativity and innovation. So once we attain this state, we get extraordinary powers or vibhutis, or we would enter to the state of dharma mega, the light of knowledge, rittambara tatra prajna, wherein a person will be able to obtain a lot of vibhutis and siddhis like anima, mahima, lagima, garima, vashikaranam, wherein a person can become too small or a person can become too big. And also vashikaranam, through his eyes he will be able to mesmerize the other person or tend to do what he wants to do. So these are all the extraordinary powers of the vibhutis. But Patanjali wants us all, stating, if you misuse them, you will be responsible for that. That is what he tells. So even though we enter into this meditative absorption state, even though we gain this lot of knowledge, we should not misuse our knowledge. That is very dangerous. That is what talks about Vibhuti Padaha. And coming down to the last Kaivalya Padaha is the last chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which focuses on freedom or the ultimate liberation. Freedom from what? Freedom from the phenomenal world or the materialistic things which are very unstable. And yoga practice aims at Chitti Shaktehe, the power of pure seeing. Let's become pure in our thoughts, words and actions. Let's be pure like a diamond, trying to reflect what the other person is thinking about you. You cannot change any person in the world out there. The only thing that you can change is yourselves through meditation practice and through yoga and through detachment. And also believe that the happiness lies inside and not outside. Don't search for happiness outside. A yoga practitioner believes in this particular concept. There's an Anandamaya lies in our own selves. And also understand the concepts of Viveka Khyati or discriminative awareness. Discriminate between real versus unreal, good versus bad. If there is bad only, then you can see the good. These are all the dualities of life. Let's be practical in our life. Let's aim at having no rebirth. Remove all the samskaras in our mind. Arise, awake and meditate. Burn your illusions. Live today. Create a legacy for tomorrow in the world. Keep learning. Share as much as you can. spread positivity in the world, elevate your prana to the highest wheels of luminosity, transcend beyond your mind and intellect, believe in the divinity, and improve your self confidence, self efficacy. By default, it comes, and also the universe is going to pave a way for your future success. Thank you, Kiranmai.